Welcome, my bountiful friends. Consider burning down your house, threatening your boss, and rebelling against society by developing your own inner anarchist before establishing an alternative fitness club, because today we're going to be delving deep into Chuck Palahniuk's alternative classic, Fight Club. A tired and neurotic young man who's sickened with modern American society and what it's reduced men to, opts to do something about it in quite a radical and dangerous manner. How and why did this book come to be? What's the author's story? What's the novel's style? And what was its impact on literature, and how does it fare today? As usual, I'll be diving deep, and as always, there will be as many spoilers as there are Project Mayhem members. And there will be opinions. Oh, there will be opinions. You have been warned. The development and publication history of Fight Club is as unconventional and bold as the novel itself. Chuck Palahniuk, who was working as a diesel mechanic in Portland, Oregon during the early 1990s, began writing in his spare time, partly as a creative outlet and partly in reaction to the conformity and materialism he observed in his modern life. The origins of Fight Club trace back to a short story that Palahniuk wrote in 1995 while attending writing workshops. This story, simply titled Fight Club, appeared in the compilation Pursuit of Happiness and later formed the basis for Chapter 6 of the novel. Encouraged by the response to the short story, Palahniuk expanded it into a full manuscript. He intended it as a sharp critique of what he saw as a generation of men who felt emasculated by consumer culture, corporate environments, and a lack of authentic struggle or identity. When he submitted the manuscript to publishers, he faced significant resistance. Many editors found the content too disturbing, violent, or anarchic to market successfully. Eventually, the book was accepted by W. Norton and Company, a publisher normally associated with academic and literary works. The editor who championed the novel was Gerald Howard. He saw potential in its edgy style and raw original voice. The novel was released in 1996 in a relatively small print run, with little expectation that it would achieve any commercial success. The main protagonist is the book's narrator, and he remains unnamed, though he often refers to himself as Jack, seemingly the same Jack from the nursery rhymes. He is introduced to us from the beginning as suffering from insomnia and disillusionment with his consumerist life. He creates Fight Club as an outlet for his frustrations, and events quickly spiral out of his control, and he ultimately stops catastrophe from occurring by taking an extreme action. His fate by the end of the novel is a neutral state, and there's a suggestion that the cycle of mayhem may begin once more. Tyler Durden is the narrator's charismatic and anarchic alter ego. He co-founds Fight Club and escalates it into the violent revolutionary Project Mayhem. When the narrator attempts to kill Tyler by shooting himself, Tyler disappears, but his influence persists through Project Mayhem. Marla Singer is a cynical and chaotic woman whom the narrator meets at a support group. She becomes romantically involved with both the narrator and Tyler. She is pivotal in assisting the narrator in pulling him back from his psychosis. She survives the events of the novel and appears to still care for the narrator while he's in the hospital, suggesting she still remains within his life. Robert Bob Paulson, aka Big Bob, is a former bodybuilder and testicular cancer survivor who finds solace in support groups and later joins Fight Club. He is shot and killed during a Project Mayhem operation, becoming a martyr for the group. Angel faces a young attractive recruit to the Fight Club, whom the narrator brutally beats up out of jealousy and to assert dominance. He survives but is disfigured while engaging in the Fight Club, but remains a central and loyal follower of Project Mayhem. The Mechanic is a high-ranking member of Project Mayhem, who tests recruits by engaging them in dangerous tasks. His ultimate fate is unclear, but he remains deeply committed to the group's cause throughout the novel. The police commissioner is a law enforcement official investigating Fight Club and Project Mayhem. He is kidnapped and threatened with castration by Project Mayhem members and is thus coerced into stopping his investigation. This highlights the width and depth of Project Mayhem's influence and methods. Fight Club and Project Mayhem members are various and nameless individuals throughout the country who follow Tyler Durden, enforcing his anarchistic ideology. They continue to operate even after Tyler's disappearance, showing that the movement has grown beyond its founder. They are presented almost as a force of nature. They can reach almost anyone, anywhere. An anonymous narrator is working as a recall coordinator for a car company in an unnamed US city. The jet lag brought upon by his frequent business trips, plus the stress of the job, causes him to suffer acute insomnia. Seeking medical assistance, his doctor advises him to simply man up and understand what true suffering is like by visiting a support group for testicular cancer patients. Following this advice, the narrator finds the support group surprisingly cathartic, and for a while it alleviates his insomnia. His improving situation is ruined when Marla Singer appears in one of his sessions. He quickly recognises that she is another tourist who's visiting the support groups under false pretenses. The disturbed Marla reminds the narrator that he too is a faker who does not belong there. He begins to hate Marla for keeping him from crying and therefore from sleeping. After a confrontation, the two agree to attend separate support groups to avoid each other. An uneasy truce is arranged, but the narrator's insomnia has now fully returned. Delusional from flying backwards and forwards repeatedly across the country and unable to sleep, the narrator is unaware that he has fallen asleep when he dreams of meeting a wondrously anarchic and charismatic individual called Tyler Durden on a nudist beach. After striking up something of a rapport, there's an explosion which destroys the narrator's condominium. The narrator asks Tyler if he can stay at his house. Tyler agrees but asks for something in return. "I want you to hit me as hard as you can." Both men find that they enjoy the ensuing fistfight. The narrator moves into Tyler's large and dilapidated house on Paper Street. Soon after, they both establish a fight club, drawing other blue and white collar men into bare knuckle matches. They soon formulate 8 rules. 1. You don't talk about Fight Club. 2. You don't talk about Fight Club. 3. When someone says stop, or taps out, or goes limp, the fight is over. 4. Only 2 guys to a fight. 5. 1 fight at a time. 6. They fight without shirts or shoes. 7. The fights go on for as long as they have to. And 8. If this is your first night at Fight Club, you have to fight. Marla, who notices that the narrator has stopped attending his allotted nights for the support group, calls him to say that she has overdosed on Xanax in a half-hearted suicide attempt. Tyler returns from work, picks up the phone to Marla's drug-induced ramblings, and subsequently rescues her. Tyler and Marla then embark on an affair that confounds the narrator and confuses Marla. Throughout this affair, Marla is unaware both of Fight Club's existence and the interaction between Tyler and the narrator. As Tyler and Marla are never seen at the same time, the narrator wonders whether Tyler and Marla are the same person. The underground Fight Club movement spreads across the entire continental US, and Tyler uses it to spread his anti-consumerist ideology, recruiting its members to participate in increasingly elaborate pranks on corporate America. He eventually gathers the most devoted Fight Club members and forms Project Mayhem, a cult-like organisation that trains itself to bring down modern civilization. This organisation, like Fight Club, is controlled by a set of rules. Number 1, you don't ask questions. Number 2, you don't ask questions. Number 3, no excuses. Number 4, no lies. Number 5, you have to trust Tyler. While initially a participant in Project Mayhem, the narrator becomes uncomfortable with the increasingly extreme activities it carries out. He resolves to stop Tyler and his followers when Bob, a friend from the testicular cancer support group, is killed during one of the sabotage operations. One day, Marla inadvertently reveals to the narrator that he and Tyler are in fact the same person. As he entered into psychosis, the narrator's mind formed the personality of Tyler so that he could escape from his life's mundane problems. Tyler's affair with Marla, whom the narrator professes to dislike, was the narrator's own affair with Marla. The narrator's bouts of insomnia have actually been Tyler's personality surfacing. Tyler is active whenever the narrator is supposedly sleeping. The Tyler personality created Fight Club and blew up the narrator's condo. Meanwhile, Tyler's plans escalate to a climax. The narrator learns that Tyler intends to blow up a skyscraper using homemade bombs in an act to destabilize society. Tyler even plans to die a martyr in the event, taking the narrator's life as well. Realizing this, the narrator sets out to stop him. The narrator makes it up to the roof of the building, where Tyler holds him at gunpoint. When Marla appears on the roof with one of the support groups, Tyler vanishes, as Tyler is the narrator's hallucination, not hers. With Tyler gone, the narrator waits for the bombs to explode and kill him. But the bombs malfunction because Tyler mixed the explosives incorrectly. Still alive and holding Tyler's gun, the narrator puts the gun in his mouth and shoots himself. Sometime later, he awakens in a mental hospital, believing he is in heaven and imagining an argument with God, who resembles a doctor. The narrator is then approached by hospital employees who reveal themselves to be Project Mayhem members. They tell him their plans still continue and that they are expecting Tyler to return. The style and atmosphere of Fight Club is integral to its impact, creating a raw, visceral experience that mirrors the psychological chaos and cultural critique at the heart of this story. The novel is written in a minimalist, fragmented style, using short, punchy sentences and repetitive phrases that reflect the narrator's fractured mental state and inner turmoil. The prose is stark, stripped down, and often brutally direct, lending the novel a sense of urgency and emotional disconnection that matches its themes of alienation and rebellion. Key to the style and themes is the first-person narration, which is revealed over time to be unreliable. The narrator tells the story in a disjointed, non-linear structure that frequently shifts in time, memory, and perception. His tone is flat, darkly humorous, and cynical, especially when describing the corporate consumerist world he inhabits. This voice immerses the reader in the narrator's psyche, which is both insightful and unstable. The style mirrors the psychological unravelling of the narrator as he grapples with identity, freedom, and his alter ego, Tyler. Repetition is a notable feature of Fight Club. Phrases like "you are not your job" and "I am Jack's appendage" are repeated with a rhythmic cadence, almost like mantras. This technique reinforces the themes of conditioning, indoctrination, and the breakdown of individuality in a system that strips people of their identities. The novel's atmosphere is grim, gritty, and often claustrophobic. The settings, support groups in church basements, blood-slick basements, anonymous office spaces, and the decaying house on Paper Street are symbolic of the bleak impersonal modern world. These environments are not just physical spaces, but emotional states, reflecting the inner emptiness of the characters. A strong sense of urban decay pervades the novel, both in setting and mood. The world of Fight Club is one where traditional values have eroded and characters are left floating in a vacuum of meaninglessness. The result is a tone of simmering discontent and suppressed violence. This oppressive atmosphere is only punctuated by the brutal physicality of the fights, which offer moments of catharsis but also further descent into chaos. Despite the dark tone, the novel is also laced with black humour. Absurdity and irony highlight the ridiculousness of modern life, from the narrator's obsession with IKEA furniture to the grotesque details of the alternative soap making. This humour doesn't lighten the novel as much as it sharpens its satirical edge. In summation, the style and atmosphere of Fight Club work hand in hand to deliver a jarring, immersive reading experience. One of the most prominent themes in Fight Club is that of the fractured identity of the modern individual. The unnamed narrator leads a hollow, directionless life, defined by insomnia, a sterile corporate job, and an obsession with consumer goods. His creation of the charismatic and rebellious alter ego, Tyler Durden, reveals a deep psychological split within him. Tyler becomes the physical embodiment of the narrator's suppressed rage, desire for freedom, and rejection of societal norms. The twist, that the narrator and Tyler are the same person, forces a confrontation with the idea that one's identity can become dangerously fragmented when it is shaped externally rather than authentically. A closely related theme is the crisis of masculinity. Palahniuk portrays a generation of men who feel emasculated by the demands of a civilized, corporate, consumer-driven world. Deprived of meaningful roles, rites of passage, or struggle, they seek validation and power through the raw physical experiences of fight clubs. The violent, primal nature of these clubs become a twisted form of therapy, an attempt to rediscover purpose and agency. However, this regression into brutality also critiques how unresolved discontent can spiral into toxic masculinity and extremism, as seen when Fight Club evolves into Project Mayhem. Consumerism and materialism is central to the novel's social commentary. The narrator's initial life revolves around coveting brand name products, which are the currency of a society that equates material consumption with success. Tyler's anarchist philosophy offers a radical rejection of this system, claiming that true freedom lies in detachment from possessions and the social expectations that come with them. The things that you own end up owning you becomes a mantra against the illusion of fulfillment through consumption. Mental health and societal alienation are another theme. The narrator's insomnia, emotional numbness, and eventual psychological breakdown illustrate the personal toll of living in a dehumanizing society. His descent into dislocation underscores how deeply repressed emotions and unresolved trauma can lead to self-destructive behavior. The novel suggests that in a world that stifles genuine connection and expression, mental instability is almost guaranteed. At its core, the novel is about the human need to feel valued and alive, and the need to live in a meaningful society that values and permits individuality. The chaos and violence of Tyler's philosophy lashes out at a shallow and uncaring society and an otherwise empty existence. Tyler wants to burn it all down, but is thwarted by his own ineptness and the narrator's morality. The real path to meaning lies in self-awareness, integration, and taking responsibility for one's choices. In 1996, Fight Club initially received modest attention, but quickly gained a reputation as a provocative and subversive work that challenged mainstream literary norms. Critical reception at the time, as is so often the case, was mixed. Some reviewers applauded its bold narrative style and raw, uncompromising voice. The book's first-person narration, sharp social satire, and plot twist involving the split identity of the protagonist drew obvious comparisons to other notable literary works dealing with unreliable narrators and psychological complexity, most notably Bret Easton Ellis's American Psycho and Robert Bloch's 1959 masterpiece Psycho. However, kudos to Palahniuk for omitting the word psycho from his novel. Critics from outlets like Publishers Weekly and Kirkus Reviews recognised Palahniuk's talent, but also expressed concern about the novel's graphic violence and anarchist philosophy. However, it was the 1999 film adaptation directed by David Fincher and starring Edward Norton and Brad Pitt that launched Fight Club into the international cultural spotlight. The film's success retroactively boosted the novel's reputation, leading to a surge in its popularity, garnering much academic interest and international translations. What was once a cult novel became a defining work of Generation X disillusionment. Over the years, Fight Club has been the subject of extensive literary and cultural analysis. Scholars have explored its themes of alienation, consumerist critique, and the psychological fragmentation of the modern man. Its portrayal of an emasculating consumerist society, toxic masculinity, and underground rebellion has generated both acclaim and concern. Some critics argue that the novel offers a scathing indictment of the emptiness of capitalist society and the cost of repressing genuine emotion and individuality. Others worry that the book's message has been misunderstood or co-opted by extremist or misogynistic subcultures who idolise Tyler Durden's nihilism rather than questioning it. Palahniuk himself has addressed this misinterpretation, noting that Tyler Durden was intended as a cautionary figure, not as a role model. Guess they shouldn't have cast Brad Pitt then. The novel, he has said, is about the dangers of unchecked ideology and the need for self-awareness and balance. Nevertheless, Fight Club continues to provoke debate about how audiences engage with satire, glamorise fantasy violence, and anti-hero narratives to this day. Fight Club is yet another novel that employs the unreliable narrator technique. This means that the protagonist may be confused about the events that they have witnessed, or may even be outright lying to the reader. It is left for the reader to discern fact from fiction. This normally results in a novel that is so ambiguous that it can be interpreted in a number of different ways, and this is very much the case with Fight Club. In this novel, there's no particular reason to believe that the narrator is seeking to deliberately deceive us, but he is clearly strung out on drugs and insomnia, and is also in the midst of a mental health crisis that is so profound that he has spawned at least one alternative personality. If a reader takes the events of the novel at face value, then they are merely reading about the anarchic adventures of the narrator's rebellious self, Tyler Durden. The story centres around the creation of an underground bare-knuckle fighting club that spins out of control and evolves into a fully fledged terrorist organisation filled with fanatics who are prepared to do anything to bring down what they perceive as corrupt society. The novel ends ambiguously, with the main plot thwarted. Tyler has disappeared from the scene, and the narrator is slowly recovering his mental health in an institution, while Marla waits in the wings. How I like to interpret this novel is that the narrator's delusional psychosis is so chronic that it's not just Tyler who's an alternate persona, but Marla too. In fact, the entire Fight Club and its extension, Project Mayhem, does not exist in reality. They both completely occur in the narrator's troubled mind. The book reveals to us that when the narrator initially fights Tyler, he is in fact merely punching himself repeatedly in the face. On the face of things, the Fight Club spreads across the entire US continent in little to no time, which would be an amazing feat that would be extremely difficult and require years of dedicated work for any striving entrepreneur or influencer to achieve. And the subsequent Project Mayhem is recruited from an abundance of dedicated men with zero day-to-day commitments and no individual aspirations or even a desire to live. Project Mayhem has a reach and a logistics chain and a lethality that long-established international terrorist organisations can only but dream of. They can even casually kidnap and threaten police commissioners and infiltrate mental institutions. So both the Fight Club and Project Mayhem have fantastical qualities of success, presence and capability. So what's more likely? That this was all achieved by our weary and confused narrator and his alter ego? Or he simply imagines the entire thing? I go for the latter. The only events that actually occur are the narrator burning down his own home and moving into the derelict house on Paper Street, the manipulation of his boss via the use of the narrator's superpower of kicking his own ass on demand, and his shooting himself on top of a high-rise at the end. When he awakens in the mental institution, he's still hallucinating and he actually believes himself to be in heaven and surrounded by Project Mayhem operatives and receiving visits from Marla. The narrator is just a sick man trapped in a web of his own fantasies. He is unable to tell truth from fiction, and he has been made unwell by a sick society that also struggles to discern substance from appearance. And that is what I think lies at the heart of this novel. It's not just the narrator who is sick and delusional, it's society too. Society has lost its way and is unable to care for its constituent parts, that is to say, its people. And because it is lost, it can offer them no clear path to a successful or healthy future. That's quite a bleak image, but perhaps one will not become ill if they are able to ground and centre themselves on their own moral values and maintain a healthy local society with friends, family and acquaintances in their immediate vicinity. So, what are your thoughts on this Gen X alternative classic? What do you think is really going on and what it all means? Don't forget to like, subscribe and hit that bell icon for more deep dives into the world of literature. Until next time, keep reading and remember, you don't talk about Fight Club. You don't talk about Fight Club. Now, get yourself over to the house on Paper Street and tell Tyler you want to be one of them. My eyes are open.